Mallow's Movies!
Yay! Hey, guys!
Hey, what's up?
It's me.
Oh, that's right. We should.
Yeah, we got the cameras over there this
Gotta
time.
talk this way and
Different
look that
setup.
way.
Last movie we did, Bumblebee, was done podcast style, but I really wanted to do, a bunch of nerds in a room together and look like Godzilla.
Yeah, look at that
Oh,
shit.
oh,
Look,
Gotta
that's
show off the
fine.
Godzilla merch.
Stuff that I've dug out for years ago. Wow.
They were all sitting on his banister. Do not let him.
He has a shrine to Godzilla in his closet.
Right next to Barney.
Right next to Barney.
There it is.
Oh, no.
Dang!
That's not our joke.
No, that's not
our joke.
Get him out of here.
It's just another movie. You guys
Cut.
want to see Cool Cat?
Cut.
I want to see Cool Cat.
Cut. Wait.
Cool Cut.
Cool cut.
No.
Cat. No.
Oh
stop.
boy, this is. What are we doing here? We're reviewing Shin Godzilla.
Yeah, that's not.
That.
It's not your father's Godzilla.
this.
It's not your daddy's Godzilla.
This is 2016
This
Godzilla.
is millennial. Wait, no, actually,
This is millennial.
Godzilla terminology. I can't use millennial because millennial Godzilla was 2000 to 2004.
Best.
The best. It's the best. So yeah, I'm sorry. Let's get into it.
Okay.
Dice and Chia here. Little to no experience with Godzilla. Chia, I think the most experience, if correct me if I'm wrong, would be through your mother.
My mother loves Godzilla. She loves all of the super campy, like
the early Godzilla films.
The Monster Mash videos. There's just like Mecha Godzilla versus Godzilla, and then there's Rodan over there, and oh look at the Gigas. But they're all here. No, this is not that Godzilla whatsoever. I was very pleasantly surprised.
No, and then Dice, did you have any experience with Godzilla before?
Nope. Much like Transformers, this was my my first experience with a giant monstrous being again.
And I promise this will be our last. Dice pointed it out to me. I didn't realize our giant monster robot-esque type film for a while now.
2 in a row.
2 in a row, which was completely coincidental. And my reasoning behind that was I wanted to do a blockbuster, and then I wanted to do something more, I guess, artsy, for lack of a better term, which Shin Godzilla is very much that. So starting off this review, we'll go with Dyson. Your first reaction to this movie, which I'm excited for you to share with everyone.
So my first reaction to this movie, I was watching it in a more likely way that I could receive a bad version of it or a fan-made version of it. So with all the very quick cuts in the beginning and how fast shit kind of kicks off, and then up to the point where they first introduce how Godzilla looks, I was begging Mallow to call me because I was convinced I was not watching the right movie. I was convinced I was watching some fan-made bootleg because to me, and I guess I'm the only one who shares this opinion, he looks ridiculous when he first walks out the goddamn water.
Oh, no, trust me, the first time I saw it, I laughed because of the Google eyes.
I was legit like, somebody better call me because I'm going to watch an hour and 40 minutes of the wrong movie, and I'm going to be really mad that I have to watch another.
So this movie was very divisive in the Godzilla community. It was one of those, you hated it or you loved it. And one of the best things about Godzilla is that because it's the longest running movie franchise of all time, he's covered a lot of ground in terms of experimentation. From being, the very first film is a very serious, disturbing film about the reality of using nuclear weapons. It's a horrifying film, similar to Shin Godzilla, but in my opinion, it goes further than Shin Godzilla. And then he goes into campy, like you said.
It's just monster.
It's just monster fighting. There's no reason to it. I don't know. It's like the monster, like Hedorah, who's the pollution.
It reminds me of like the mainstream media taking something that's supposed to be scary or like disturbing in some way, and then the fan base cutesifies it to the point where it's pleasant to look at and cool to kind of like think about.
Yeah.
Where like one thing that I can think of immediately was a video game called Five Nights at Freddy's. Yeah, it's supposed to be really scary, and the animatronics are supposed to be extremely unsettling, and yet the entire fan base just cutesifies it and makes plushies out of it, and like
not to even get off topic, but I was amazed at how many kids loved that game.
Yeah, because when the first game came out, It was horrifying. Like, it's one of the scariest games. But I digress. This has the same...
You
like,
want to have a Five Nights at Freddy's talk? We'll talk.
well, of course. But this is kind of like the same for Godzilla. Like, this is a subversion of that. Whereas, like, the Monster Mash movies were just kind of get out to the, like, general public and make them like Godzilla as a character. This was a subversion, whereas Godzilla is a terrifying force of nature that cannot be stopped by any conventional means.
So, back to what you said about the forms. Godzilla's fishy, googly eye.
With the ball sack gills. Let's not
Yeah,
forget the ball
that's
sack
like the
gills.
first thing you
The
see.
red goop
It's,
gills.
it's blood actually coming out.
The goop gills. I like
They
the
actually
gills.
have,
Goop gills.
the different forms of Godzilla in this movie actually have official names, and that's why I have my phone here. I pulled it out to make sure. I'm sure I'll mispronounce some of these, so forgive me. The first form is Kamada-kun, and it's like from what I've seen at least, so many plushies of Kamada, like their little fin, awful. So many plushies. You talk about Five Nights at Freddy's things being cutesified.
Yeah, that's
so many plushies of Kamada-kun. I really want one myself. If you can't,
I'm surprised you don't have one.
the second form, which is when it finally, the first time it stands up on all two, Shinagawa-kun.
So they count that as changing forms. He's just able to become bipedal, so he's evolved.
Well, if you in that scene specifically, he grows arms and he's growing bigger.
He morphs.
Okay, so he is growing arms in that scene.
Yeah.
Yeah,
he does. He rips them
like,
out of his torso.
Yeah, like they
Okay.
come out of like where the gills used to be and stuff like.
Because I was like, look at the little nubs. He's like a turtle.
He's
And
just
that's,
like
that's another common thing is the little pencil.
the fingies.
So, and then the final form, unlock it.
Well, that's just Godzilla, ain't it? Or Godzilla.
Yeah, but if you the unofficial is what the humans called it. So, but if you're going by whatever,
The god of the creation is.
it's Kamakura-san.
Kama.
Which is interesting because it bears resemblance to other Godzilla monster named Kamakurus, but
Kamakura-san.
Kura-san.
Oh, it's Kura.
Kura,
Okay.
yeah, Kura.
Because Kuro is
San.
shit.
Yeah, it's
No, that's Kuso. I'm sorry. Kuro is like death or deadly.
Well, yeah.
yeah. So that makes sense. Anyway, Chia, your first reaction, and Chia got lucky here, and I say lucky to when I pick a film. I always pick films that these guys would not watch on their own time, for better or worse for them, and I always make them watch it twice, because I said in the last podcast, it is my opinion that if you're going to review a movie, you need to see it at least more than once. But we're cutting Chia a break here because this was your first time watching it, and
Yeah.
you had a generally positive vibe from it.
Yes. Whenever we first talked about doing this video, I wasn't actually going to be a part of this, but I did tell you at one point that Shin Godzilla was what I wanted from Godzilla from the very beginning. And clearly, the first film is that. It is a cautionary tale of using nuclear arms and what it produces afterwards. This is the same thing, but I noticed something about this film in that vein right off the bat. In the old Godzilla films, they treat nuclear energy as antagonistic and foreign because they don't they don't immediately address the bombings of Nagasaki and Hiroshima. They kind of just allude around it. They just kind of allude, oh, there was a nuclear tragedy. They don't actually say that it was the United States bombing Japan.
Especially in the 60s and 70s.
Yeah, that was very hot topic back then. And it's kind of inconsiderate or whatever, to bring that up. But in this movie, they don't dance around it. They immediately tell you this reminds us of what happened whenever the nukes dropped in Nagasaki and Hiroshima. It's the first time, and it's not presented in an antagonistic way. It's just comparison to the amount of devastation that's happened. But getting back to what you were asking, yes, I love this film, actually. This is exactly what I wanted from a Godzilla film. It is humanity trying to figure itself out in the wake of a monstrous natural disaster, because that is all Godzilla is. He's not antagonistic. I mean, at the ending, he is. Whenever he's shooting down the drones and actively
Is
killing.
that because they're attacking him?
As
Right.
antagonistic,
They're
with
trying to
self-preservation.
they're trying to kill
Everything he does in this movie is reactionary to them.
him. Right.
It's
because
not,
they drop the.
They think. Sorry.
I'm sorry.
No, it's just they think he's doing this because he's just walking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and then the beams, everything doesn't come out until they.
And remember what I said during the movie, it's that he's just existing.
Yeah.
And him existing, sliding around on his belly, and then immediately standing up, like, afterwards, is just him evolving and trying to adapt. And at one other point that I made is basically this movie is like an adaptation of the game Evolve. Because you were just a giant monster trying to survive and get bigger, while humans are trying to kill you. And that was all this movie was civilization realizing, okay, this thing is big enough that it can kill the entire world just from its radioactive pollution alone. We need to stop this.
Yeah.
I love it. Like, that's exactly what I wanted from Godzilla.
Good. And this isn't your... This isn't even your second time watching the movie.
Yeah.
That's what you get for being close friends with me.
Yeah, you get pumped full of Godzilla knowledge without even asking.
Take that out of context. Pumped full of Godzilla.
Start the injection!
Yeah! Start the injection! oh, we're gonna... That's...
Kaboom! Begin the injection!
That's gonna be overlaid here for sure. I mean, what was your reaction, at least? I was there for most of it your first time.
I mean, whenever you first told me about the movie, my big hook was, and for some reason this show has become a big meme for some reason, was Evangelion, just because, A, the guy that made the show was part of the direction of the movie.
Well, he was the director.
Yeah.
What's his name? Hideki Anno?
I think, yeah.
I'm not sure.
But,
Looking to do with the fucking Wikipedia.
But don't worry about it.
But, that was like kind of the main thing that drew me into this movie, between like the way it's shot and just like the gruesome look that Godzilla gets between the three forms. It was like the one thing that drew me in was just like going into it like, oh yeah, this is like an Ava film, but it's Godzilla twisted and mangled and just primalistic.
Can I raise a point on that? His first form, when he's crawling around on his belly and he has the big bug eyes that everyone makes fun of, isn't that kind of what... Well, this is spoilers for Evangelion, but isn't that kind of what Eva 01 looks like without its...
Oh, yeah, like Berserker form?
Yeah, when its eyes are just glossed over and big and
when
googly.
it just goes like extreme Berserker and it's like all of its armor is ripped off. It's just animalistic and it's...
Yeah.
It's just rage.
You can tell that there are so many like juxtapositions between that.
And just like I said, the way that it's shot, it just drew me in. So whenever I first saw it, like my biggest freak out was the scene whenever he first uses his plasma beam. Because at first I was like, okay, like
plasma beam, that's correct.
Like
normally it would be called radioactive breath in the other films, but I think
but
plasma
that
beam.
really is.
I
think there's been
now.
enough crazy shit in the Godzilla world that that's a straight up
you're right,
single cut plasma beam compared to everything else. But yeah, like I think the first time I saw it, you had left the room to do something, and I was just sat there watching him go from just blowing out that black smoke and then going from the fire, and I was like, okay, this is maybe a normal Godzilla attack. And then it just crunches and transforms into that plasma beam, and I about lost my mind. I stood up for like a couple seconds. I was like, wait, oh, okay, so, yep, he's plasma beam.
See, I think when a new Godzilla film comes out, and I mean, at least in a new iteration of Godzilla, because of course in Japan you'll have multiple films use the same Godzilla costume and the same, attempt at, what's the word I'm looking for? A coherent story, but timeline.
Chronological. A continuity.
Continuity, yeah, I couldn't think of that word. You'll have an attempt at continuity, but most Godzilla films just...
That's not a good sound.
That's not a good sound.
But most Godzilla films...
Okay, before I keep breaking that. But most Godzilla films just will reinvent. And one of the most fun things about watching a reinvented Godzilla film is seeing when the first time he'll use that radioactive breath, because it's often used at a pivotal moment. In the 2014 Bryan Cranston film, I went and saw it, and because the 1998 my opinion, awful Matthew Broderick Godzilla movie, he never used his atomic breath, which was insulting because that's a big part of what Godzilla does. So when I saw the 2014 film, I had no hope, and I had forgotten it. But by the end of the movie, and they actually kind of used it in Shin Godzilla. You see the glow starting at the end of his tail and going up his back, and it was such a huge moment. And then with this one, I think this one trumped all of. I know I'm probably the only one who's seen more than one of these types of scenes, but the introduction of his fire breath in this one was just
Oh yeah, it's.
My Godzilla.
Whenever-
Ooh.
I mean, at this point, if you're watching this movie review, you probably either seen the movie, but
Or you don't care about spoilers.
yeah. So they pace it out kind of well with that scene as well, because he is, like you've stated, he is not aggressive until he is aggressed upon to any means that actually hurts him. Whenever he's getting shot by machine guns and shit, he just walks through because it's not hurting him. But when they drop those stealth bombs on him, that's kind of when that starts. Whenever he is like, okay, these insects are hurting me, and so I'm just gonna flood this, and he floods it all with poison, and then he
That black
ignites.
smoke is...
Yeah, like
That
Yeah,
alone would have killed
Yeah.
so many.
Like, he
I
pretty-
say I give the movie what it's worth. When he unhinged his jaw and all that shit started happening, that was like the coolest part. I appreciate the CGI that went into the later Godzilla or whatever the technical term was, but
Oh, you mean
whatever
what
his
you just
real
said.
name is, the
The
final
form that he
form.
was in.
Well, it's Shin Godzilla. It's
Yeah,
just
when
that,
he
that's the
reaches
technical...
peak form, I give the movie credit where it's due. Like, the CGI was on point. Some of the lasers were bad looking, but you had even mentioned they took a risk at it at day. Which,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I get it. It was, but that's probably one of the few good points I can give this movie. When he unhinged
We'll
his
get to the
jaw
battle.
and went straight into it, I was kind of hooked. I was like ready for battle
And that
scenes.
score...
Yeah, I was gonna say,
That
and then
gore was
if
big.
I
If you get a chance, look up those lyrics because they are so powerful and just...
the song's called "If I Die," right?
You know, who will know?
Who will
It's
know?
Who will know? And I think the first lyric is "I wear a void," and it's like, it's not really, but you can be it could be interpreted as Godzilla's inner monologue of that scene. Like, I have done nothing in his mind, at least. I have done nothing,
Like all
and
he's
you are
trying
coming
to do
at
is
me.
essentially like traverse a land that he's tried to get through for like decades.
Well, just like it's an act of nature. It's a tsunami. It's a tornado. It's not inherently evil. It is there. And
Yeah.
I think at the end of the movie, the main character says, "We are now going to have to learn to live with Godzilla.
Humanity.
I think-
Humanity
Yeah.
has
Absolutely.
to live with Godzilla because we have created it. It is, and a way to look at it is it's our punishment. We saw the final shot. I don't think he's dead. I don't
no-
think anyone believes that he's done.
That is extremely ambiguous because when you think about it, like, he's the ending is he's essentially turned to ice because the coagulant has frozen his blood completely, which I have a question about. They said that his internal organs acted as a nuclear reactor, right? And that his blood was a cooling system. If you overcooled his blood to the point that it froze,
wouldn't
it
melt
wouldn't
down?
it wouldn't freeze, he would melt down.
Yeah.
See, but my theory, and this is just a theory because it's not confirmed in the film, that crust of skin that he does at the end,
Yeah.
I think that was not the coagulant. I think that was a defensive mechanism.
Yeah.
That he just manifests from ingesting that much of the
I think he
coagulant.
stopped himself. He did something. I think
like
he stopped.
the coagulant from reaching.
He was doing something to process it or something.
It looks like a very the ending shot and all that. It looks like a very clear setup for the possibility of another one coming.
They want it to. It's not
It's not
going to
gonna-
happen.
yeah, you know
and
what,
I
I'm-
agree with it not going to happen because you see the humanoid figures coming off the tail at the end, which is just such a beautiful, horrifying.
That's a hell of a shot.
Yeah, and it leaves so we've seen enough horror movies to know if that thing reawakens and there's going to be massacre in the streets. We've seen Attack on Titan and stuff like that. People are going to be. I just imagine people getting ripped apart by these things.
And ironically,
unmercilessly.
that's that ending shot of the movie where that stuff was a possibility. That's the movie I wanted.
Yeah.
That's the movie I wanted. I sat here and watched this for an hour and 40 minutes and went, wait, no, the good part. Wait, there it is.
And
Don't
once
go.
again, and that's another thing this movie did that Godzilla had never done in the past. I think to squeeze out and this much originality from a specific franchise after 65 plus years of it being around is a feat of its own, separate from anything else really. Because, and I said the same about The Last Jedi, so come at me.
Salty Entertainment Fun Time does not share the views of Mallow on Jedi, of The Last Jedi.
I loved it. Anyway, what else? I guess we can move on to Jeff. Dice.
Not like nobody knows, but
Uh,
yes.
Yeah, everyone. Dice. Negative. negatives that you.
Okay, so if it's not painfully obvious from everybody like really fanboying over in this corner, and then I just kind of sat here. I did not enjoy this movie, at least not nearly as much as I thought I was going to. I have to admit, I did think that this was going to be the big kaiju battle shit. Before you had told me it wasn't, I was like getting excited. I'm like, I get to see some big monsters beat the shit out of each other. This is going to be better than Bumblebee because it's going to be actual more fighting instead of just the one big robots at the end. And it's just Godzilla.
You blue-balled yourself.
He showed up. I really did. I kaiju'd myself. He showed up. I had a hysterical laugh the first time he showed up. I will say there were some shots that were really cool. The blood scene in the beginning where it pours through the tunnel.
Yeah, that was a really cool
That
one.
was a really cool shot.
That's your first hint at even.
But when he first popped up, I didn't care. I wanted to like the Prime Minister in this movie, and he was just a load of garbage. My main problem with this was that there was barely any actors, or at least I think there was barely any actors. I truly love the main character. I think he had great presence. He seemed commanding when he needed to be, and when he needed to lose control, it actually showed in the movie. The girl who played his counterpart, the American, I don't know if she was an ambassador or what.
Something.
She was from USA. She did great. I think her character was fantastic. She came across as what is it? The special service or full service? And she claps.
Personal service.
Personal service, and she claps and it falls out. That was really cool. I think she was great. The only way I could see the other actors being awarded with anything is if they were all told to be stoic, bullshit, hateable characters the entire movie. Except the girl who is blatantly there to just be the voice of reason from everybody in society. Who's
I
like,
guess that's just politics, really. I
mean, realistically, that is how politics, I would assume, works in real life.
Because
There
I
are
know
people
you,
who are
I know you
go-getters.
hate the guy, and I
I
can understand why you hate the first. What's his name? Administer? No, why can't
Prime
I-
Minister.
Prime
The
Minister. I
first
can't
Prime
think
Minister.
of anything tonight. But it's like that's just bureaucracy at its worst,
Yeah.
and why he couldn't do certain things. Because he was like, "Yeah, do it," but then he was like, "No, we can't do it because of X, Y." So it's
I'm not like, when he called off the strike because of the civilian, I went, good dude. Way to go, my man. Probably could have avoided a lot of death tolls if you just shot it, though. But way to go, my man.
Yeah.
But then it's just
It's a
like,
lose-lose,
It
really.
keeps going, and maybe it's just by proxy I hate him more because it's everybody else who's feeding him this bullshit. And you can obviously tell they made the movie for a certain reason. They made the movie to call out that kind of reaction time to horrible events.
I think I'm pretty sure around this time Japan was going through a natural event disaster. I believe it was the tsunami.
the hurricane that knocked out the nuclear reactor.
And because of the government is lacking response is why this film was weighed the way it was.
But it's like, if your intention of this movie was to show me that what happened and it was bad and what we should be doing and what is good, then don't make a movie where by the end of it I wanted Godzilla to wipe out everybody. I wanted America to come in and try to do some shit and they get destroyed and then the whole Godzilla wins.
Realistically, like
I wanted Godzilla to kill
I think you were hoping for
everybody.
the same type of ending.
the bad ending for that is basically, I was very curious by the time maybe an hour and 20 minutes had passed. I'm like, is humanity actually going to be able to stop this thing? Because there's the scene where they're pumping the coagulant into his mouth, and I'm sincerely thinking this isn't going to work. This is just going to he's just going to mutate again, and then he's going to be unstoppable because he's just going to find a way to cool his inner reactor without the use of his blood, which is ridiculous.
I also have a problem with that ending shot now that I'm thinking about it. They show him level an entire crane team with all those tanks there. But it was very specified that they needed as many tanks as they got in order to pump him full of what they needed.
Yeah.
So when they wiped out at least a fleet of tanks that maybe weren't all pumped, shouldn't that not have given them enough coagulant?
Well, it was mixed with that.
What do you mean?
It was mixed with...
So they specifically said we have to wait on this many. There was one scene in the movie where he goes, "We have to wait 3 more days for this batches. Can we get France to delay it?" and then they go and they delay it, but it was specific that they needed this many batches. But they have those tankers pulled up in front of the crane trucks, and he just levels an entire fucking crew of them. So doesn't that take out a bunch of your batches that you needed 100% of?
I would imagine that it was at least for me, and I'm not saying this is right or wrong. I'm just saying I assumed that they had prepared, knowing what his capabilities were in that sense, to overdo it.
I will agree.
In the movie, whenever they are pumping him, they say that they reached like the
We've
minimum,
reached the limit, but let's
like the minimum
They-
amount that they needed to make sure that he could possibly like cool down.
I'm willing to say I misconstrued the scene, but it just, the way they came across that scene when they were asking France to delay, it just made it seem like they needed every single drop that
Right.
they got. Because, like, they had
But
to
in a
delay it.
in a
In a sense, you're
situation like that, you're going to say that we need. But you're all. I would say, I'm not military by any means.
Yeah, I mean,
but
God forbid.
I would assume that they would purposefully overdo it and say, yeah, hey, every last drop, knowing damn well they're not going to get every last drop. Because you're not going to say as much as you can, you know?
Yeah, like,
We need at least this much. So if you get that much, maybe we could pull it off and sell the rest on, eBay.
yeah, like don't worry about it. It's just Godzilla. Like,
Plus,
Be
on
strong woman.
Plus, on top of that, on top of the coagulant, you also had the
You
whole
gotta
like.
say that in every review. I want you to get
yeah. Speaking of the female lead, she. Okay, I'll wait until it's my turn to talk about negatives. I'm sorry.
But,
What? Once Sid wraps up, yeah.
But on top of the coagulant and all that, they also pretty much did the whole like trickadoo thing and made him use
Trickadoo.
almost all of his power. Like essentially, you could think like that last plasma beam that wiped out the first fleet was probably like his last spark of energy.
Yeah, that's
before-
his dying gas.
Yeah, like that was his last like okay.
Because I believe he
I'm not-
tries to do it again after, but then
Yeah,
it's too late. and-
Yeah, because he tries to warm up again whenever he wakes up and snatches the cranes up.
Again, I'm not saying that he couldn't have fought or why he took it out was wrong. It's just like the way they stressed it, it made it seem like all those tankers
Oh, yeah.
had to dump in his
Yeah.
mouth.
Like between that and like just the stress of the whole scenario.
There was just gangbang on gangbang of tankers that had to unload.
Dice,
Full
ladies and
service.
gentlemen.
You got two thirds.
Godzilla.
Personal
Nice.
service.
Personal service.
All right,
This Godzilla review is not kid friendly.
We're Salty Entertainment Fun Time. We're not kid friendly.
Dice like the part where it got pumped full of Godzilla.
It just dumped in his mouth.
Real strong.
Dice's favorite part.
Prepare the injection.
You know what? If Mallow reviews really keep going the way I want them to keep going, it's bound to happen. Another Godzilla movie is going to end up on the list that you don't have to be part of. But the thing that's behind you now, the record, that's the movie that you want.
Yeah, probably.
That's the one that just came
And
out
I
in
would
America.
be pissed off if the next one I don't do and it's a kaiju battle and I had to watch this thing.
Oh, it's gonna
No.
be kaiju
No more, and no. I don't think another Godzilla film is, and only because of the ridiculousness of it. We
Yeah.
don't have one planned until like the end of the year.
Okay.
Chia. But let's go Chia. I'm
Okay.
sorry.
There is only really one thing that kind of like rubbed me the wrong way about this movie. It seems like the entire movie is kind of this warning of what happens when bureaucracy drags its ass too much during a natural disaster. Why then are the main characters who are trying to like abolish this thinking from their mind suddenly at the end of the movie or nearing the end talking about how they're going to advance their careers through this and how she's strong woman going to be the president of the United States and
Rando.
rando
After Godzilla's dead?
no, I'm talking about like she's talking to her dad about it, and her dad is basically like, when you're
I
president
think
of the
you mean
United
the
States.
president.
I think
the
you mean the
president.
president of the
Right,
United States.
it's her.
That's not her dad.
Right?
She just
I don't-
serves the president
I've never.
of the
I
United
don't. I've
States.
never heard her call him dad.
Oh, I thought that. Okay, no, there was one point when that scene
When they're
where,
on the
like,
plane.
Yeah, and she
this
like.
is when he's making her decide. You're either coming back to America with me, or you're risking your career staying here helping with this.
Right, because he's like, when you're president of the United States, you're going to do this and this. And it just seems so oddly out of place whenever the whole movie is like, you shouldn't be chasing after your career here. You should be worried about saving lives. And that's basically what Rando
Well, that was,
But that's what he
that
was
was
telling
his,
her.
yeah, that was his
Right,
president.
Right, exactly,
'Cause
which I
he's-
like about that.
He was telling her that you either save your career because this could damage you, or you do the right thing, kind of thing.
I understand. And there are also other points in the movie where Yaguchi's assistant is saying things like, oh, well, you know, there's a political vacuum, so, like, this will look good on your resume. And it's like, How is that even fucking coming?
But that's
I
the
think
bureaucracy
that's the
of it.
bureaucracy working. You're right.
That's what pissed me off,
You're,
Joe.
and
Makes me-
you're right.
it irritates
That's
me.
how it is because you had that one really old, the Yoda sounding guy. Way to go, USA! Way to go, USA! He literally talked like that. I
God,
would say
please
that's
put that
pretty
up.
fair. Like he was one of the main people for that. Like,
And I
this
hate-
is gonna really look good for like the next campaign.
Yeah,
Like,
and I understand it's supposed to be a loathsome characteristic because you're supposed to dislike that. It just, I
but
guess,
it's politics, and
it just like got to the point where
Terrible.
Rando is like making strides and actually making things happen, and there's still even that in the background at all just strikes me as like maybe a little too realistic in that sense because I would like to believe that at that point everyone would come together and be like, it doesn't matter what our politics are, it doesn't matter what our positions are, it all comes down to saving lives.
You want that, but that's the thing, and that's the horrible part. You want that, but you won't get it because that's not real life. In real life, no matter what, there's somebody behind you with a knife that wants your spot.
But see, I don't know if I picked up on that. Like, I don't know if I necessarily viewed, especially the ending where after Godzilla's dead and they're going on about politics again, about their future career. I don't know if that is a negative thing. I think that gives it a sense of
hope.
I think in the sense he's talking the before
Right, no,
Godzilla's dead.
at the very end-
afterward, it makes sense.
Right,
because
absolutely. Because
they're
there's
moving
hope.
forward
Like,
with
yeah.
their life.
Yeah, humanity is going to continue going forward, and you do need leadership, and you do need politics in that sense, because you need a strong leadership for a nation to continue moving forward. My whole problem was when it's like a disaster area, when Godzilla's actually walking around, when they're still talking about that shit, like, when they're in the evac zone afterwards, the day after Godzilla uses his poison breath, ignites it, and then learns how to use his plasma breath, his assistant like making the snide little comments of like, oh, this will look good whenever you're prime minister or whatever, and it's like, yeah, I get it, I understand where it comes from, it's realistic, it just boggles my mind that is even still in someone's brain. How is it not like, oh my god?
I think the good part of that is the two leads are not like that though.
Yeah.
Good.
If you realize everyone around them is like, hey, maybe give me a cabinet position when you get.
That's exactly what
he's like, no, we've got to stop this thing.
Yeah, Rando Yaguchi is a very good character for that because he does not screw around in that regard.
And you get your money shot of all the people you hate when Godzilla first learns his plasma beam and just takes out that helicopter.
Really, yeah.
The first time I watched the movie, I completely missed that. Like
I did too.
See,
Yesterday I did too. I had to rewind it. Because I watched the first time in sub, so I'm reading subtitles trying to catch shit, and the newscast is going off on the bottom, and I didn't catch that the whole explosion happened. I was like, what the fuck happened? Why is this guy in charge
why
now?
are we focused on this cross-like helicopter thing?
And now I rewind it, I'm like, oh, they all died!
And you know what?
Yeah, they all died!
That's a good thing that this movie does too, is that events like that aren't drawn out and played in slow motion, over dramatized. It's just, it happened.
Yeah, Prime Minister's on the helicopter, and we're...
Your entire government had just died.
Yeah.
Deal with it.
Sid?
What I didn't like?
Yeah.
Pretty well. Just because I'm more of like I want action all the time, especially in like a Godzilla movie, especially after seeing King of the Monsters, where it was like, hey, you're getting monster fights.
90% of the movie is monster fights.
And just from like my own experience with like just monster movies, I was kind of more inclined to just see action, but it was kind of more like the political stuff. Like it was just so
It's
slow.
a slow burn.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was like real slow towards some points. And like you were saying, like there are some characters where you just don't like them for what they are.
Absolutely. But I feel like that's necessary.
Right, like you're hating the right people, and whenever you go through like the last part of the movie, you start to like the right people.
Right. And for what it's worth, my gripe with the movie is like nothing comparatively, because it's like how I said in Bumblebee, how there's the one character of the young brother you're not supposed to like, and it's through that you can tell that it's good acting. I think that it is very much the same.
I just... Not my movie. I could not get into it.
And that's fine.
Yeah,
That's Dice is not a giant anything type of guy. Mechs, monsters.
Nah.
Never mind. I'm not going to...
I mean, hey... Short guys got to get big.
I'm just
Anyway.
teasing. I'm just teasing. Anyway, my final consensus
You're really good at this.
I'm so happy you run
Your
this.
senses.
Mallow, everybody.
Okay.
Final consensus.
Shin Godzilla is not for casual viewing. Would you agree? It's not.
100%.
It's not something you're gonna put on and say, "I'm looking for filler. I'm looking for something fun."
Yeah.
It's something that you have to be prepared for, and not in a condescending sense. It's not something you can just turn on and enjoy. It's something you have, no matter who you are. I think you have no choice but that you have to analyze this film. You can't just.
You have to invest some kind of thought into it while you watch
If
it.
you hate it, Phantom Menace, don't watch this one. If you hate politics,
Don't watch this one if you hate politics.
it is very. And I think a point I wanted to make was we really don't get our main characters until the second half of the film.
No.
Until the politicians are dead.
Yeah.
We don't even know who the main character is. It bounces around. We don't know that the one guy who talks sometimes is the main character until he takes charge at the end.
Well, you know what? It kind of gave me the same vibe as the Bryan Cranston movie, where it is Bryan Cranston basically trying to tell people, like, you idiots, it is a thing. And everyone's like, it's not a thing, it's a natural disaster. And then Thing shows up, and Bryan Cranston's like, I was right! Y'all didn't see it! But then in that movie, Bryan Cranston dies, but in this movie, Yaguchi lives and actually
Does something about it.
stops
Passes
it.
the time.
See, I had never seen it, so I thought you were going to say, in that movie, Bryan Cranston's an actual known actor, and thus will stick out as the main character.
One of the biggest issues with the 2014, it's the first time that American Godzilla movie was successful, but it advertised so much Bryan Cranston in the trailers that Bryan Cranston dies within the first half hour of the movie.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
that's
yeah.
not even the first half.
I would have been mad
Like,
going to see
like,
that because he was
people-
the only
people
fucking
were
American
mad.
one I wanted to
Rightfully,
go.
a lot of people. That's why Millie Bobby Brown from Stranger Things 11, she's a main character in the sequel. And so the jokes were flying. Okay, well, we're going to get 10 minutes of her. So we're going to wrap up this review. Hopefully we made some valid points for you to agree or disagree with. Please leave a comment below, click like, and subscribe.
We got to do recommended.
I'm about to say,
Recommended.
how about we do one last shot? Like, would you recommend the movie? Would you recommend the movie?
Yeah, you're
That's
right.
how you ended the last one and say you
You're right.
specifically
You're
said
absolutely
I
right.
wanted it like that.
I guess in my mind I just automatically knew the answers. So Dice, would you, to our audience, would
No.
you recommend Shin Godzilla? No.
You know what? If you have seen previous ones, if you have some kind of understanding of, because I feel like a problem with this was there was some fan service things.
No.
There was a little bit. There was some things where like this guy, they said his name. Maybe it's just he was supposed to sound important in the movie.
The Dead Doctor. No, none of those are callbacks to any previous film.
Then if you're
To
a
my
fan
knowledge.
of Godzilla, watch it. If you're not, if you've never seen one before, stay away. Just, it's not.
All right,
for
Chia.
Okay. It is what I told Mallow whenever he first told me about this movie. It is not a movie that you should watch if you are looking for a romp through Tokyo where Godzilla is trying to save the planet and fighting some other monster.
There's plenty of those.
It is not a monster mashup action film for fun. It is... I would classify this as a horror movie. It is definitely, like, completely different. It is Godzilla facing humanity, and that is always what I've wanted from a Godzilla film, and I finally got it, and I can think of no real complaints I had with the movie. Honestly, I would recommend anybody who has never seen Godzilla, who wants the actual threat of Godzilla to be fresh in their minds, you should watch this film. If you are looking for, like, Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla, which I would watch in a heartbeat, do not watch this film. It is not that. It is serious. It is horrific. It's not action-packed and fun at all. Watch it.
And Diz.
Hey, you finally remembered my name.
Yeah, I don't think I've said your.
No.
We don't. We're not good at that.
No.
They're actually
But,
friends.
Yeah.
I would recommend it to people that are either fans of Godzilla or fans of, like, kind of like more artsy or more serious movies. Like I said, whenever you introduced it to me, you said, director of Evangelion, I was hooked. So if you like shows, movies like that styled like that are kind of like more like stir crazy in some parts, and then it's just like complete gruesome like action, then yeah, I would. But again, like Dice said, if you're not a fan of Godzilla, you're gonna have a rough time with this movie.
Yep. All right. All valid points. I would only disagree with. I would actually consider this movie a natural disaster film, not a horror.
Yeah.
I would not agree with horror in any way.
It's
Some
it's kinda like
aspects,
Twister.
some aspects can be seen as. I think this movie could have easily been a horror Godzilla movie, just like straight up horror. But I would classify this personally as a natural disaster film. At that point, we're gonna wrap up this episode of Mallow Movie Reviews. Keep a lookout for our next episode. So thanks for tuning in. I started saying earlier in the video, please click like, subscribe, leave a comment on what you think of Shin Godzilla. If maybe there's a movie you'd like us to do, by all means, please. Thanks for tuning in. What's our catchphrase?
Stay salty.
Stay salty.
Stay hydrated.
Stay hydrated. I'm learning.
And of course, Mallow and Diz, thank you for supporting the channel.
See, he's not used to it because it's usually stay salty from me, stay hydrated from Jane, and then Shia chimes in.
This is my first time on camera. This will be the first time anyone from Seft is seeing my face. So.
If you enjoyed this, please consider liking our channel, subscribing, liking the video, and did you ring the bell yet?